Hello there, welcome back to my show. I've been off for a few weeks because of a terrible head cold, but I'm now back. So I'll be doing more beautiful disasters. I've got some of them lined up. But to get started with, I'm just going to talk about a film called Jesus Bro, which is just down on Vimeo, which is where I saw it, but you can also buy it in DVD from the makers. It's a movie made by the Cinema Snob. People online would want to know who Cinema Snob is. He does sarcastic reviews of some terrible films. He also does midnight screenings where he talks about the new releases as well with his friends. And if you watch that, you see a lot of people who will appear in this film in a variety of parts, and some big, some small. So I mean, he's a guy who makes films with his friends, and he seems to have a very tight-knit group of friends who they put things out like little web series, films, reviews, things like that. He does a lot of different things. I really like his the Cinema Snob. I sometimes watch the midnight screenings, so I mean I do appreciate the stuff he does. But these are the films he makes. I'm talking about one of them, Jesus Bro. I've seen one of the other ones, which was the Cinema Snob movie. I saw that last year. I really enjoyed that. It's very flawed, it's very low budget, as is this one. I mean, the thing is, these films they make have a kind of they have the kind of tone of the low budget Larry Cohen, John Waters things. They're not as out there with John Waters, but they've got a kind of rough feel to them. So some performances are good, other ones are very broad. You know, sometimes you think, tell them to tone it down a little bit. And other times it's just right. It just depends who they've got available. Because it's low budget, they're hiring their friends. So there was that limitation that goes into the movies. I mean, it doesn't bother me, but it definitely leads to the films being a bit eccentric and having some jokes that don't work quite as well because they don't have someone who can deliver it exactly right. Then again, there are cases where the people they have who are their friends also can deliver a good gag. So it just depends person to person and how they're directed. I mean, it's hard to criticise this film in some ways because it was obviously made in, I think it was made a week or something like that, maybe just over a week. So they were shooting very fast. And there's some things I thought were flaws that I think if they had more time and shot more angles and things may have improved the situation. I think sometimes it was a case of they didn't have time and I wish they had more coverage because I think they could have paced up slightly. There are other times in the film where the limitations mean that the ideas are trying to across don't land as well as they could have because they just don't have the budget for it. On the other hand, the film's pretty funny. It's really, the writing of it is pretty intelligent. They go for some silly gags sometimes, but the actual core of it is really smart and really tightly done, which basically is a well-known atheist, online atheist, who talks to the camera like this, who's got a lot of followers because he trashes people of faith, basically has a religious conversion. And the good thing about the movie is the religious conversion is done by a guy who seems to be an addict for anger. His way of expressing himself just seems to be anger, and he just runs from one to the next, one viewpoint to the next. I think he just seems to run the energy of things rather than thinking them through, which is the way a lot of people, you know, react to things, especially online where it's always about what can you see to get yourself views. So he seems to be running less on any ideology than just whatever he feels. And so he becomes the joke as well as the subject matter because anyone who jumps from one side to the other, no matter what happens, there's something off with him in this film. There has this feeling that a lot of this is the guy's problems, you know. So there's lots of little things that are there. If you look beyond the broadness, the actual script actually does have a kind of balanced viewpoint of you know, neither side, religion or atheism, should have any special place. It's like you're allowed to have both points of view as long as you don't force it on other people. And so they take targets, they target everyone who are trying to force atheism down people's throats or try to force God down people's throats, you know. And it looks into it basically looks at different characters who go to different extremes. So it's a movie about extremes. There's no one normal in this film. Everyone's like a cartoon. Some more cartoonish than others, and sometimes they have gags that are so cartoonish it takes you out because it's above what the tone of the rest of the film is sometimes, and they try for gags that appear to be surrealistic in some way, but they don't have the time to pull it off properly, so it just is like, what was that about again? But that's a flaw. I mean, the kind of films they seem to be basing this one on, like the Larry Cohns and things, had those problems too. So if you're used to these kind of films, those rough films, it's not a problem, you know, because in this film, the good stuff, you know, outweighs the bad stuff by quite a mile. And it's got lots of good dialogue, so there's lots of things there that actually work, so it's not really a problem. It just, like, if you're, I mean, you go in a very kind of unforgiving manner, you'll see a lot to pick at. But if you go in accept it's going to be a rough and tumble movie with some good ideas in it, there's lots there. So I mean, the main guy gets visions of Jesus Christ, but just Jesus Christ as a Santa Claus God sort of combination to suit him, and basically he gets conned into doing it by his own need to try and make up to his girlfriend who he just alienated. So a lot of it has to do with the fact that he's trying to back in with her, even though it was his own actions that caused the problem. So he's not actually looking at what the problem was, he's looking at every possible quick fix solution. So he goes to extremes to avoid looking at it as his own fault. So that's one of the things I liked about it, is like, it's all weird, you know, it's the way people react to things. It's not their fault, it's everyone else's fault, it's the world's fault, but it's not their fault. And this guy's like, they're targeted as a guy who cannot admit it's his own fault. Until the end when he actually realises he has to do things himself. So he goes from one side to the other, so he gets a vision of God, which when you're watching the film you're never quite sure if someone's setting him up or if it is God. And the good thing is, it doesn't really matter because everything he does is ultimately his fault, because he could have said no at any turn. And he just keeps on making the situation worse by going from one extreme to the other, not thinking it through. And so basically he goes from he gets converted, and surprise, surprise, people are not happy with the conversion. So a lot of his old followers go against him. Then because it's too hard for him, he tries to have another vision, ends up meeting the devil. And you know, and he ends up getting told to do some other stuff, which he does, and you know, he just makes it worse and worse, and ends up causing a rapture. Of course, that's something you can't actually show in this film, and so it's done as dialogue, and it's one of the unsatisfying things is they never found a way to suggest it without actually just having a dialogue, because it doesn't have the punch. But the idea's funny, because I mean, I think the idea they were trying to do was, so much of this is in his own head, his own inflated ego in the first place, that it doesn't matter if you see it, because if you see it, it might actually take the joke away from this idiot. But it means sometimes the pace of the film's off because you're not seeing stuff that would have helped, even if you had some visual suggestion of what was going on rather than just dialogue, it might have actually helped slightly. But I'm sure that was some of the budget problems. So there's lots of funny stuff. I mean, the whole idea is the whole film could be taking place in this egomaniac's head as he tries to make a life decision, and he's trying to decide whether to do something selfish or do something decent for a change. Because the whole thing is he ends up getting sent back to an earlier time where he was never converted, and at that point he makes the decision to change his life. But that could have been his ego thinking this whole experience could have been him thinking it's real, and it might just be in his head. So there's all this stuff that's, sorry about spoilers, all this stuff that could be going on, could be in his head the whole time, because this guy's such an egomaniac. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of nice things going on. I mean, there's extreme atheists who can't take that he's changed his opinion. There's extreme Christians who are trying to help him to convert by, you know, force. How do you do that? How do you con people into converting? There's all sorts of weird things, like his online critics spontaneous to combust, which was a nice gag. It's one of those ones they did it with a budget though, because it looked really cheesy, but it's still a nice idea. The whole thing is there's lots of good ideas in this one. There's another production company called Rooster Teeth who are a bigger budget than Cinema Snob, but they're doing the same idea as they do online content, they're trying to make films on the side as well. There's a difference between those two, is that Rooster Teeth has much bigger production values than Cinema Snob movies do, but Cinema Snob movies have much better ideas. The Rooster Teeth are just trying to make entertainment, so they're slicker, it's fun. They did a film called Laser Team, which I thought was fun, but it wasn't in any way original, but I thought it was enjoyable for what it was. This one I think is a lot better, even though it's much rougher, because there's lots of ideas in it. There's genuinely funny ideas in it. It's just that there's lots of rough edges to it, so you have to try and get through the rough edges. It's the same with the Cinema Snob movie, which I thought was a better film overall, because there was less mugging, and the performances were toned down a little bit more in the Cinema Snob movie. This one, it's because it's more fantastical, I think they give people the license to be a bit broader. And I don't think it always really worked. I think sometimes they had ideas that didn't work and they just try to mug their way through it. But there's so many other scenes where there's lots of funny dialogue scenes. The dialogue's the best bit of the film. The dialogue's really funny a lot of the time. A lot of throwaway jokes that really work. But there's a real roughness to it as well, so you have to go in with that knowledge that it's not a perfect movie. And it's not even trying to be a perfect movie, which is the charm of it. It's not even, it knows, probably people know what the flaws are in the film. It's not a film where you feel people are oblivious to the flaws, but they still went with it. So the acting is kind of rough in a lot of places. The lead guy, Dave Gobler, you see him in some of the Snob's midnight screenings. He's very good at the lead. He actually manages to, he knows what he's doing, so he manages to keep the story moving. It plays a selfish guy, but you can see a lot of the mechanics behind his eyes of why he's doing things. It's good because he's actually allows himself to be an idiot for a lot of the movie without actually trying to project as if he's not. So that's nice, but it doesn't go over the top either. So the big plus of the movie is that he knows what he's doing. He knows the tone he should be taking, and he really goes for it. Some of the other ones, like the one who plays the girlfriend, is also good. She's a bit eccentric. That works as well. So a lot of the central people work. It's just the people around. I mean, Brad Jones is a snob himself. He plays the main guy's brother, and he's really funny in like one or two scenes, and he's just this lunatic who's got God and who has taken it way to the extreme. He's really funny. There's other people who are in it who you see from midnight screenings who are not quite used as well, but it's like it's that kind of movie. So either you can get what kind of movie it is about 10 minutes in, so you either go with it or don't. But the film itself is a lot of fun. I mean, it's I don't want to go into too many more details, because I think you should try and see it yourself. But it's a well-made, fun B-movie. That's it. It's kind of what B-movies should be, which is lots of ideas, lots of roughness, and you forgive the flaws. That's what B-movies should be, not try and be as slick as possible and rip off tons of ideas you've seen before. They should be weird and different and trying things. Something might not work, but they should have a uniqueness to them. And that's what this film has. It's just that you have to accept some of its limitations. But every film has limitations, so what? I enjoyed it. I would say definitely give it a shot because there's lots of good things in it that, and it's got a consistent message, and it's very tolerant of people whose ideas you might not agree with. But it has that point of view, so it's cynical about people and what they do, but it's not mean. It's not misanthropic or anything. It's just it has a good natured, even though it's very aware of how people delude themselves, how people can fall down the wrong paths, how they can do the dumbest stuff possible, but still have some decency to them. So it's a very good-hearted film about idiocy. So that's basically what I'm going to say about the film is go to give it a shot. It's worth giving it a shot. I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll be back soon. My beautiful disaster will be running up the next week or two. So hopefully you enjoy them as well. Okay, bye.